listening to episode 179 of Mitolife Radio. I'm Matt Blackburn. I had a lot of requests to do more Q&A solo shows, so here it is. It's a rainy afternoon here in North Idaho. It's been raining for weeks. I enjoy it, minus not having solar power coming into my house, but that's what a generator is for. I have my souped up coffee here next to me from Home Roasted Beans. I have in it MCT oil, lion's mane from my friends over at Alpha Dynamics. I have that full strength lion's mane powder on my website. Maple syrup, collagen from Satchery, full fat cream, and that's it. That's my usual coffee recipe before I do recording. So before we jump into the Q&A, I'll give a little life update here on the homestead. I made the stupid mistake of not wearing eye protection while I was limbing a tree. So I have a wood burning hot tub, and I was cleaning the branches up above it to open up the view, especially at night to see the stars in there, with an electric still saw. Very small saw that you can hold in one hand. And I was up on a ladder and I wasn't wearing glasses or goggles. And basically sawdust was raining down on my face and consequently my eyes. And immediately I felt my right eye become very irritated. And when I climbed down from the ladder, I wasn't able to open it. So the next day I had it checked out with an eye doctor, and they said that I have a corneal abrasion. Basically my cornea was scuffed up, but they said it was already healing. And fortunately my LASIK flap, because I got LASIK eye surgery several years ago, 5th generation, that flap was not dislodged. And I probably would have known because my vision would have been disrupted. But it was just irritated. It felt like something was in there. And so they checked under my eyelids, gave me some antibiotic steroidal drops, which did not seem to do anything. So the prescription was to take those drops 4 times a day. And I felt like they were doing nothing compared to all of the other stuff that I was doing. Fortunately, my girlfriend was here to be my nurse and help me throughout the days and make meals and adrenal cocktails. And that was really awesome for her to do that, and it made it a lot easier those 3 days after the injury. And it wasn't until about the 4th day that I was able to open that eye and keep it open all day. I did make sure to keep up with niacinamide, that form of vitamin B3. I sell that supplement called NAD Power, and vitamin E, because both of those, especially for eye inflammation, are really important. And if you look up nicotinamide, eye inflammation, PubMed, or eyes, or any eye disease, and nicotinamide, which is a synonymous term for niacinamide, form of vitamin B3, you will find a huge amount of literature on the topic. So I often take 6 capsules, which is 3,000 milligrams of niacinamide, which is the full dose for a day. And that one day after the injury, I decided to try triple that dose. So I took 18 capsules that day, and I actually got bleeding gums. So the solution for that was very simply to take vitamin K2, which helps with blood coagulation. But I learned my lesson. I've never taken that much B3, and I will be more careful with it in the future and just stick with 3 grams or less, because I definitely feel that effect anyway. It seems like with that injury was just time that helped it heal and rest and sleep. So that was quite the journey, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you're a wife with a husband that does yard work and he doesn't wear safety glasses, have him listen to this, because not being able to see for 3 or 4 days was really not fun. All right, let's jump into the Q&A. Any recommendations for those without a gallbladder dealing with weight gain? So if I had my gallbladder taken out, I would make sure to take bile salts for the rest of my life, a bile salt supplement, because the role, the function of the gallbladder is to make bile. And without bile, you can't digest fats. You can't break down fats, especially vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are essential for your health. So for those without a gallbladder dealing with any issues, of course, none of this is medical advice, but if I was in that situation without a gallbladder dealing with any health issue, I would make sure to be on bile salts every day for the rest of my life. Thoughts on fermented cod liver oil? So this is what confused my stance on cod liver oil for the last several years. I heard these horror stories, like from Dr. Ron Schmidt, of it causing heart issues. And I dug deeper and found out that a lot of the cod liver oil sold, most of it, is either fermented, which is another word for rancid, or number 2, it's fortified with synthetic vitamins A and D. And both of those situations cause problems. So the only one that I endorse is the brand Rosita that I have on my website. They have a very special proprietary processing that took them about 10 years to dial in. They essentially process it in such a way that most of the nutrients are still intact. And that is not the case for your regular health food store cod liver oil. And I often tell people, you won't find high quality supplements on the grocery store shelf. It's fine if you want to experiment with a new compound and just run to the store and grab it real quick to start experimenting with it. I do that quite often. But when it comes to dialing in quality, you have to do that through buying supplements on a website. Someone asks, I'm pregnant. Do you recommend taking more than a quarter teaspoon of cod liver oil? If I was a pregnant woman, I would recognize the importance of retinol or vitamin A in fetal development. And you could just search retinol fetal development and dive into it, read the articles on the Weston A. Price Foundation website, especially the one Vitamin A Amazing is a really great article to read, and go from there. It's a food-based supplement, which means that it is very safe because it's balanced. The only things it's missing in large amounts is vitamin E and vitamin K2, which you can get from Mitolife. I have the PUFA Protect product and the Purely K product. And those two, plus the Rosita cod liver oil, are a great combo. If I was a pregnant woman, I would be on all 3 of those every single day, and I would just take as much as my body asked for. What is the best panel to get done for assessing if I'm deficient or high in minerals such as iron, copper, or vitamins B and D? So this is actually a hot debate right now in the health community, is testing and whether it's even worth doing. My current stance is that the tests are worth doing if you have money. If you can barely afford any supplements, then I think it might be wise to forego all testing, except for maybe the Full Monty iron panel, which is a really good one to get to see what your iron status is as far as iron overload, which happens to be most people on the planet. But that Full Monty iron panel, although it's expensive, it will also show you your vitamin A to vitamin D ratio. It will show you zinc and copper and ceruloplasmin. The only problem with tests is that some things will not show up in the blood. And I recently had Jason Hommel back on the podcast for the second time. First time to talk about copper, the second time to talk about zinc. And he was saying you could actually show up as lower zinc in your plasma, but still be zinc sufficient in your tissues. And that blew my mind and kind of frustrated me, because that means that the test for zinc is absolutely useless if it's not showing the zinc that's in my tissues. And the same thing goes for vitamins A, D, E, and K. Remember, these are fat-soluble vitamins that are stored in the liver. So I think it's helpful to go off of symptoms as long as you don't spin off into a neurotic spiral like many people do, that just scroll all day on social media, reading posts, just over-consuming as much information as they can. It's just as important to integrate the information, take breaks, and most importantly, take action with the information that you read and learn on social media or the internet in general. And I find a lot of people just get stuck in that confusion state because they let the barrage of information and everybody saying opposite things get to them, instead of, like I've been doing the last 12 years, actually put into practice, actually try out these protocols and supplements and combinations, again, without going broke and without being very obsessive about it. For me, it's my life. It's what I enjoy to do. It's fun to learn about nuance and details. And as much as people don't want to believe it, nutrition and health is very complex today, thanks to the scientists that have screwed up our soil chemistry with salt-based NPK fertilizer, with biosludge, with geoengineering aerosol sprays that contains who knows what, radiation and heavy metals, with changing the chemistry of the rain that falls down on your biodynamic or organic outdoor garden. There are so many complicated factors today that people just assume that as long as you're eating a whole foods diet or taking whole food supplements, you're getting everything you need. And that goes in line with what a lot of the doctors say at the doctor's office. They'll say, oh, supplements are a waste of money because you just pee them out. That's why your urine changes color. You're just sending your money literally down the toilet. This is word for word, verbatim, what a lot of doctors will say to their patients. But what they won't say is that the cattle actually have copper deficiency because the soil is shot and the animal's health is shot. And so many steps in the whole process of getting copper in the seed, in the plant, in the cow that eats the grass, in the cow's liver, and you're eating that beef liver and you're just assuming that there's copper in there. It is an assumption. and you are rolling the dice. That's not to say don't eat whole foods because it's not worth it, or don't take whole food supplements, but keep an open mind to isolates and synthetics. I definitely do. I'm constantly questioning my beliefs, and the supplementing vitamin D thing still doesn't make sense to me. The cholecalciferol in isolation. If you do that with vitamin E or K2, most people are very deficient in those two vitamins, and so you're very unlikely to cause issues. And same thing with retinol, in my opinion, especially if, like me, you have a 30-year history of being plant-based, then you probably have a vitamin A, a severe vitamin A deficiency. So you have A, E, and K. But when you plug vitamin D in, like the last few years, because it's important for immunity, right? Take your vitamin D. You're going to deplete your copper, potassium, magnesium, retinol, your other fat-soluble vitamins, E and K2, and so many things that people are already deficient in that I just cannot get behind supplementing isolated vitamin D3. Just doesn't make sense to me unless it's a component in cod liver oil, which contains 10 times the retinol to D. So all of these fat-soluble vitamins work together. But what people forget is you also need magnesium to convert that D3 supplement to 25D to 125D. And most people are magnesium deficient because they've been getting excess calcium their entire life, largely in the drinking water, which not a lot of people talk about. Unfiltered water is a huge source of excess calcium. Someone asked my thoughts on Ayurveda. I think it's awesome. I'd love to have a Ayurvedic practitioner on the show at some point. I would love to learn more about it. I love Shilajit. I love Mucuna, Bacopa. I was introduced to a lot of these Ayurvedic herbs several years ago through the superfoods community. And I started throwing all of them in my raw chocolate that I was making. And I had to add quite a bit of sweetener to cover those bitter flavors. But I think Ayurveda is awesome. I think it has a lot of application. I would just caution people against going too deep into any one system, whether it's Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine, because I see a lot of really hyper-focused people that miss the context of today's world and would have a lot better success with their clients if they were to take a more integrative approach. Someone asks, which of your supplements do you recommend cycling on and off? My answer is all of them. A lot of people have messaged me saying that once they stopped one of the Mitolife supplements, such and such symptom returned. And so that's a really interesting way to dial in your supplement routine and find out what's working, is just cut one out for a week or two or however long you want to experiment with and see if you notice any changes in your mood, your sleep, your energy levels, your mental acuity, and readjust from there. Best supplement to take from Mitolife if you could only take one. That would definitely be Panacea. That's the purified Shilajit resin tablets that we import from Russia. And hopefully we can keep those coming in. It's been a little wild with the current events of the world. I've been taking Shilajit for several years now. I started with the powdered form, and I definitely had effects from that. But once I switched to these purified resin tablets, it was a huge shift. And I take 5 every day. And that's one that I really notice if I stop taking, that my energy dips. And it's no wonder, because it contains minerals that are basically allowing enzymes to function. So you could have sufficient calories coming in, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, but if you're missing vitamins and minerals, then you can't make energy properly and your body can't fully function. And to me, that's where the power of supplementation comes in. Someone says vitamin E is causing insane irritability. Is it mobilizing estrogen? Is it a liver issue? Estrogen could be playing a role there, and it likely is because vitamin E has a powerful ability to draw estrogen out of the tissues. If that is the case, I would just simply increase my fiber intake. I find that a lot of people, especially in the quote pro-metabolic community, undereat fiber because they're just relying on the raw carrot, which I did for a while. So I recently added in salads, and raw leafy green vegetables are heavily demonized in a lot of these health communities. And I ate a huge salad. That was my entire dinner in my raw vegan days for about 4 years straight. And I found what I was missing was protein, amino acids, and carbohydrates. I had the fat because I was dousing it in olive oil and avocados. I had the fiber, but I was missing the carbs and the animal protein. So now that I have all of that going on, and now I reintroduced salads, raw greens, once a day, I feel amazing. My bowel movements are better. My mood's better. My energy level's better. I feel like my nervous system is more stable and grounded just by having one salad a day. And I play around with the dressings. For years, I did Bragg's raw apple cider vinegar and olive oil and sea salt. But lately, I've been really enjoying the balsamic vinegar. It's called 25-star vinegar from Casandrinos. And I have that on my Matt Blackburn website. Once again, only an olive oil that you can get online. You're not going to find it in stores. And it's amazing. So I just put that on there with a little bit of apple cider vinegar, not too much, and some sea salt and some Dr. Cowan's powders. Lately, I've been enjoying the threefold savory blend, and that feels so great on my system. So I would just remind you to make sure that you're getting enough fiber in. Someone asked, ever looked into Barefoot shoes? If so, thoughts on it? Own a pair? I have a lot of friends that like the Vivo Barefoot brand, I think it's called. I usually wear the Soft Star shoes with the very wide toes. They almost look like Ronald McDonald shoes. And there's no support. So I have both things going on. My toes are not cramped together like in a cast, and there's zero support on the sole. I also own Vibram 5-finger shoes and the Earth Runners, which I tend to wear both of those more in the summer months. I pick the shoes that I'm going to wear based on what I have going on that day. So if I were to, like back in the day, wear shoes all day long because I'm working all day long, then I would definitely prioritize wearing a shoe that doesn't cramp my toes together. Like I mentioned, the cast style shoes, most shoes on the market. But if I'm just going out for 2, 3, 4 hours, then I think it's fine to wear any shoe. So that's kind of how I gauge it with what shoes I wear. It's really unfortunate that 99% of the shoes that you find have the really narrow tip for your toes, because that's really harmful for your health. Someone asked thoughts on eye floaters. I've heard that it's a retinol deficiency. I've never experienced those, but a lot of people have told me that the Rosita cod liver oil knocked out their eye floaters sometimes as quickly as 1 to 2 weeks. Someone says, current thoughts on vitamin C ascorbic acid. So I guess they want me to expand on the discussion that I had with Jason Hommel on my show about vitamin C. And this is going to be a continued discussion. I guess how I would preface this response is with redox balancing. So redox stands for reduction and oxidation, and it's really the foundation of our health. And if we don't have that, then we are going to experience disease conditions. And one of the things that regulates redox balance, and some would argue the number one thing that regulates redox balance, is ascorbic acid. It's not rutin, it's not P factors, J factors, even tyrosinase and copper. Ascorbic acid is the main player there. What I've found with this whole discussion of whole food vitamin C versus ascorbic acid debate is that most people are just parroting the same whole food vitamin C argument without adding anything new to the discussion. They're not addressing ascorbic acid's role in redox. They're not addressing increased requirements for ascorbic acid in certain disease states. They aren't addressing that plants and animals don't make whole food vitamin C in their bodies. They make ascorbic acid. So these are all really important points to me that are never addressed and that should be. And so can whole food vitamin C still be effective? It can be, but in what context? How much would someone have to take to reach the same thousands and thousands of milligrams that someone would reach by taking just plain isolated ascorbic acid? And this opens up a bigger can of worms, the discussion of whole food supplements versus isolated supplements. And people have been arguing about this for decades in the alternative health community. My current view is, why can't it be both? Why can't it be, in certain contexts, whole food supplements would be better for this person, and in another context, isolated supplements would be better for another person? There's a lot of this or that thinking in the health communities, but I think we need more of this and that thinking, because nuance, context, situational awareness of where someone's been, what their diets were. Like I said, I was vegan, vegetarian, raw vegan for decades of my life, barely eating any meat. And if I was, it was definitely not grass-fed, grass-finished steak, especially in significant amounts. And that says a lot about what someone needs to supplement. And a lot of people that I've talked to have that same history, where they were essentially on a starvation program for much of their life, depriving their body of essential nutrients that they should have gotten. And my question is, can you recover from that with only using whole food supplementation? Or do you need isolated concentrates to recover from that? Or how about generational deficiencies? Can you get enough magnesium from your green juice to solve generational magnesium deficiencies? I don't think so. And that's why I am and have been a proponent for intelligent supplementation for several years now. So the vitamin C topic, to be continued. the last point I would make is that ceruloplasmin can definitely get too high. Life is about balance, and we can't have too much ATP. We can have too much ceruloplasmin. We can have too much of anything. And one of ascorbic acid's roles, AA, is to regulate ceruloplasmin. Some people would say destroy, decimate, obliterate, lower, but maybe it's just balancing. That is a possibility that I am seriously considering. So lately I've been looking into the work of Carl Pfeiffer, Andrew Saul, Abram Hoffer. These guys had really interesting things to say about vitamin C, and I am of the opinion that you should listen to everyone, no matter what ties they had. I think Pfeiffer had ties with the CIA, so did Hoffer. But to throw out all of their information because they had certain affiliations, I think, is short-sighted and illogical. So I like taking the good stuff from everyone and finding the truth that way. Here's another question. Good thoughts around healing from trauma and helping out a tired central nervous system. I would start with listening to my episodes with Adam Bergstrom. I think I have about 12 of them. And the older ones are going to be on YouTube, cataloged on there. And his information on trauma is really interesting. He uses color recycling or color therapy a lot, but he also recommends yawning and stretching as an effective way to process traumas. And what's fascinating is you see cats doing this all day long. I have 2 cats, and I just see them yawning and stretching all day. And it reminds me to do the same. I would also look into Neurooptimal. I had a whole podcast with them. They sell a device, or you can find a practitioner. They call it brain training, and some would call it a form of neurofeedback. And that is really good for the central nervous system. It's helped me out a lot. What supplements are good for libido, blood flow, etc.? I would say as far as Mitolife supplements, that's going to be Shilajit and vitamin E. And you could also throw Dissolvedol in there, the systemic enzymes, as scar tissue will inhibit proper blood flow. But vitamin E is very underrated for that. And Shilajit is sometimes known as Indian Viagra. So I would add in all 3 of those and see if that helps. I also think elk velvet antler is really powerful, as well as pine pollen, both the powder and the tincture form. Best approach to heart health. Been struggling with palpitations, extra heartbeats, etc. So when I think of the heart, I often think of magnesium, vitamin K2, and vitamin E. Those are 3 big nutrients that almost everyone with a heart condition is going to be deficient in. And the magnesium deficiency is threefold. 1, it's not coming in. 2, magnesium antagonists are coming in. And 3, you're not retaining it. So the adrenal cocktail is really powerful to help you in holding on to magnesium. And that's due to the potassium content of that. So it's basically unfortified coconut water, fresh squeezed orange juice, and white salt. I drank that 3 times a day for a month, and it was a total nervous system reset. I felt like I handled coffee differently. My sleep improved. So many things improved because a lot of people are just sodium and potassium deficient. And if you have that going on, you can take all the magnesium in the world and you're not going to get as much of an effect. And you could also throw boron in there, which helps you retain magnesium. Copper does as well, I believe. I think Jason has said that. So basically, we're talking about mineral balancing and making sure that you're getting sufficient vitamin E and vitamin K2. And if you want to go further, assess your electromagnetic radiation environment, your EMR environment. Even if you're in an apartment with 15 or 20 Wi-Fi signals all around you, it's really critical that you unplug your Wi-Fi router at night, or you're in a hotel or an Airbnb or whatever it is. It's the Wi-Fi router in your immediate environment that makes the most difference. And then you could go crazy with shielding Faraday tents. Like I have a travel one that Mercola sells, or you can do Faraday canopies, which get really expensive. There's grounding sheets. There's Stetzer dirty electricity filters, which are very helpful. There's Blue Shield scalar emitting devices, which don't block EMF, but they give your body a harmonious signal to recognize and kind of anchor to. So you have a lot of options, but just remember that man-made electromagnetic radiation really hammers the heart. And going back to the redox thing, it really lowers our redox potential. So if you want to start simple, I would just start making homemade magnesium bicarbonate. If it was me, I would get magnesium in 3 ways: the homemade magnesium bicarbonate, the Mag ATP product from Mitolife, and magnesium baths, either sulfate or chloride in filtered water in your bathtub. And if you can make sure to increase your potassium and sodium at the same time, potassium should reach at least 4,000 milligrams a day, and even more if you've been under stress or trauma. People often forget how powerful these minerals are, especially sodium and potassium, for blunting the stress response and helping the nervous system to recover. It's not all magnesium for relaxation. You need all of the minerals coming in. Another heart question: is there any evidence of nutrients or vitamins undoing clogged arteries and damaged arteries? So if I was experiencing that, I would focus largely on systemic enzymes and vitamin K2. Magnesium would help as well, but the nattokinase and serrapeptase, like the dissolvidol supplement that I take, that would be on the list. And vitamin K2, which takes calcium out of the soft tissues like the arteries via activating these proteins like the GLA protein, the matrix GLA protein, and that will take calcium out of the soft tissues and deposit it into the bone. What is your number one tip for constipation? That would be increase your magnesium intake in those 3 ways that I mentioned. And if that didn't work, or if you want to take it to the next level, I would say rectal ozone gas insufflation, which sounds very intimidating, but it's a very quick procedure that you can do at home using the Crucial 4 cold quartz ozone generator. You rent an oxygen tank. This is what I do from a welding supply store. You make pure ozone gas and you introduce that via the rectum to your intestinal tract, and it will clean you out. Goodbye mold, goodbye pathogens, goodbye parasites, and hello increased intestinal function, because these peroxides increase tissue function over the next several weeks. If you could only afford 3 supplements, what would you recommend? I would say Shilajit, vitamin E, and systemic enzymes if I had to pick 3 to take consistently. Someone says they're more sensitive to the sun when taking Rosita cod liver oil and or vitamin E. I nearly burn now, always tanned before. So there's so many factors that go into how we handle the ROS, reactive oxygen species, generated by ultraviolet radiation of our skin. Even non-nutritional factors, like I've noticed if I'm underslept, I burn so much easier and I'm so much more sensitive to the sun. So I would make sure that your sleep is really dialed in. That might be investing in a grounding sheet and going direct rod to earth, especially if you're on the second or third floor or higher of a building. It's even more important then. And I would experiment with altering the ratios of the cod liver oil to the vitamin E. So I would try increasing the vitamin E, decreasing the cod liver oil, or vice versa, and seeing if you get an effect either way. You could also increase your vitamin C intake, as C and E work together as antioxidants to protect against free radical oxidative stress induced by sunlight, which can be damaging if you overdo it. It's called photoaging, and it is a stressor that the body has to match with antioxidants. So make sure that enough C is coming in as well. And you might want to also look into pre-dosing with a red light therapy device before you go out in the sun for the day. What have you been taking with high dose copper sulfate? So this listener is referring to Jason Hommel's protocol, which is basically taking high dose copper, both orally and transdermally. And what that high dose is up to the individual as far as what they feel safe taking. He's just introducing information out there through his book, The Copper Revolution, and the podcast that he's doing to shed light on the safety of copper, that you have to get into the 5,000, 10,000, 15, 20,000 milligram range to have any sort of harm. But he often emphasizes that the safeguard is built in, and it's called metallothionein. So your liver will actually excrete excess copper. And that's why I felt safe high dosing topical copper. It was that exact point that he made that convinced me to try it. And during my interview with Adam Bergstrom, I was high dosing it and I felt nausea at first, and then that passed and I felt this incredible second wind like I've never felt before. And my brain was buzzing and I felt super energized, and it was a really great feeling. And so that was my start to the protocol, although I went a little harder than I would recommend most people do starting out. So to answer the question, what have I been taking with it? I have been cycling on and off the topical copper and staying consistent with the oral. So I'm averaging about 10 milligrams of oral copper every day. And I'm just really tuning in, taking a day off here and there from the topical copper sulfate to see if I notice a difference. But if I am high dosing the copper sulfate, then I take with it zinc and ascorbic acid, which Jason talked me into. And for more context about that, go and listen to the latest podcast that I did with him, because those two balance out high dose copper, especially zinc. So we often hear that if you take a ton of zinc, it will deplete your copper. And yes, that's true. It will deplete your copper. But the opposite is also true. If you take 100 milligrams of copper a day, you will quickly create a zinc deficiency, like probably within weeks. And ascorbic acid or vitamin C is also another balancing factor there. And AA is actually what removed the discoloration from my hands from high dosing copper. So this might sound like a wild experiment, and I'm not recommending that you do it. If you're interested, I think it's a fairly safe protocol and it's a fun one to try out. A lot of people are skeptical, rightfully so, of high dosing that much copper, but I'm in relatively good health and I'm very sensitive to new supplements. So it's been really fun for me to experiment with. Someone said, what business advice do you have for someone trying to make it big in the health industry without being a sellout? My number one advice would be study and research. And if it comes naturally to you, like it did for me, and it's fun and it's exciting and it really activates your brain and you're obsessed about it in a healthy way, then just run with it as far as you possibly can and just keep taking it further and further and filling in these gaps of knowledge that aren't being shared in the health community or counter perspectives. I think the problem is when people try to come out with a product or a program, but their heart really isn't in it. They're not passionate about learning about natural health. It's all I think about all day is vitamin and mineral balancing. And yes, I have moments where I'm just out on the lake in my kayak and just enjoying life and not thinking about vitamins and minerals, but most of the time I am. It's the integration aspect of thinking about vitamin C and copper and zinc and how all of these things interplay. It's fun for me and it brings my body to life. And I think it's really a blessing to have found that. So if you want to, quote, make it big in the health industry, I would make sure that you want to make it big in your creative mind and really connect dots that haven't been connected before. And maybe it's not in the health industry. Maybe it's in another industry. Maybe it's not even education that's your purpose. Maybe it's behind the scenes stuff, which we all need behind the scenes people to make things work. What I did for several years is just relentlessly attend cancer conferences in person, no virtual stuff, all in person conferences, expos, went to community events, networked at the health food store with people, at the supplement section, just had endless conversations with people about supplements and natural health. And when I had to drive to work to attend my 3 jobs, I listened to podcasts all day long and I enjoyed it. It was better than music to me. And yeah, I would listen to music here and there, but it was 90% of the time learning through podcast episodes. And that was my journey. Yours might not be the same, but hopefully that helps. This is a good question. Do Stetzerizer filters make a difference if you're flipping your breakers every night? It's my understanding they're not necessary if you're doing that. If you're turning off the breakers every night, then you shouldn't need the dirty electricity filters. The one thing I would caution is flipping the breakers every day will wear those out. So if you're okay with replacing them every once in a while, that's fine. But there are better setups where you can install what's called a kill switch, where you don't have to tax your breaker box every time. Someone asked, nutrient-dense desserts. My favorite one is vanilla ice cream. I like the brand called Double Rainbow. And I mix in their Shen Blossom Presence formula. It's reishi syrup, really high quality reishi syrup. And that lights up my brain, not get me wired way, but I sleep really good after I eat that. What do you like the best and the worst about homestead life? So the best is that I have some kind of sovereignty and self-sufficiency where I'm producing my own milk, my own eggs, my own electricity, being fully off grid, and soon my own honey. But the worst aspect is remembering that I still need propane, gas, and diesel to run my machines, my tractor, my skid steer, the other farm equipment that I have here, and also that things break or animals escape or animals get eaten. A lot of unexpected things can happen that could really throw off your day or delay things that you have to do or completely shift the focus of your entire day. And those things tended to happen to me in the dead of winter, which was really fun because it's super cold out. You have to walk around trying not to slide around on the ice rink that is the driveway and work around these things that are broken. Like in my case, it was the automatic goat waterers. But it's all a great learning experience, and I would choose this life, which some people would say is harder, any day over city life, because there's a big difference in being self-sufficient and relying on the municipal water system and your local electric company. It's my biggest peace of mind to know that I am disconnected from that grid of water and power for the most part, and then soon to be food once I start growing fruits and vegetables here in North Idaho. Someone says, what are your opinions on binders, especially with something like mold? If it were me, I would personally just use a combination of ozone therapy. And with that one machine from Crucial 4, you can do ear insufflation, ozonate water, and rectal insufflation. So that's 3 different treatments in one machine. And I would combine that with Shilajit, like my Panacea product. And that's all I would use for mold. Someone asks, is Carnivore MD retarded? He recently made a reel about sourdough being BS. What are your thoughts? I eat a slice of sourdough with butter every morning with breakfast, with my raw goat milk and my eggs. That's my usual breakfast. And I feel amazing on that combination. And a lot of people don't have any issues with sourdough. I think a big problem in the health community is that we're constantly restricting. So you can't have salmon because of the PUFAs. You can't have red meat because of the iron. It's too much iron. Or different plants because of oxalates or lectins or phytates. And it just gets ridiculous to where you're restricting more and more and more. And we end up with something like the carnivore diet where all you're eating is muscle meat or muscle meat and organ meat. And you're cutting out pretty much all plants. And it just gets really extreme. And so I would just caution you against listening to people like that promote any sort of eating protocol that restricts really anything, because nutrition is so individual. I've been adding back in vegetables, especially raw vegetables, and feeling amazing. And that flies in the face of a lot of these nutrition programs and camps out there. So experience really is the best teacher. And if something that you eat makes you feel good, I would keep doing it. Mitolife for pets. Yeah, you just break open Mitolife capsules on your pet food. And that can be tricky with the vitamin E, but some pets, if they're not picky, they'll be fine with that. The powdered supplements are generally easier, so Digestitol you can break on your dog or cat's wet food. Do that with the Purely K, with the probiotic. Those are 3 that would be really good to give to animals. What are your thoughts on iodine? I'd like to have a whole episode on this. I've been looking more into it thanks to Jason Hommel. I was taking it years ago and I stopped because of the fear that it would shut down the thyroid gland and cause thyroid issues. So I recently started experimenting again using oral consumption of nascent iodine, and I'm feeling great from it. I actually like how it tastes, but it's something that I'm still looking into, and I'm sure I'll eventually make a Mitolife Academy video on it. What are the top skills one should acquire to become more self-sustainable in a city? So I can say what I did when I lived in the RV in the ghetto of South San Diego. I would drive to the mountains and harvest acorns and nettles and make nettle root tinctures. And that was my way of starting to disconnect from the system, making acorns into edible food that I then took with me to work and ate while I was driving and doing deliveries, and also dosing myself with that homemade nettle root tincture. I think those experiences were really powerful to start to shift my thinking out of city mentality into reconnecting with the land. And I was a city kid growing up. Video games, my outdoors was in the backyard, running around in the grass, which was great. We had a lemon tree, we had an apple tree, we had aloe vera. I played with bugs, and I was grounded a lot and had a lot of interaction with water via chlorinated pool, but at least I had some water interaction. But now it's just to the next level where it's a lot cleaner environment, a lot better interactions. And I'm slowly starting to learn this new environment here in the Pacific Northwest that is a lot different from San Diego, Southern California. So there's different flora and fauna to familiarize myself with here. So short answer, I would say get into hunting and or foraging and drive a little bit outside of the city and just start doing that once a week or every few weeks. And that will start to retrain your brain to get out of the city mindset. At least that helped for me. Is there a need to supplement zinc and ascorbic acid if you're only consuming copper from food? So that's an individual question. I think if someone was vegan or vegetarian their whole life, then the answer to zinc would be yes, need to supplement that. And then with vitamin C / ascorbic acid, I think if someone's experiencing depression, anxiety, low libido, any of the symptoms of low dopamine, vitamin C could really help with because of its role in catecholamine synthesis. It increases tyrosinase, hydroxylase, dopamine beta hydroxylase, but most importantly, BH4, which converts tyrosine into L-dopa, which is the precursor to dopamine. And a lot of people have low dopamine, and that not only lowers motivation, but lowers sex drive, lowers your mood, energy levels, so many things. And so many things today are draining our dopamine. And so vitamin C could be a really powerful ally to make sure that we keep our dopamine levels up. Best supplement for high blood pressure, I would look at vitamin K2, magnesium, vitamin E. All three of those are very powerful at regulating blood pressure. Someone asked, what were the pans you use again? I like Extrema, really good ceramic pans, and Oziri stoneware. But I will be giving cast iron another try, especially being off-grid. It's important to get things that last a really long time. And I just learned about seasoning cast iron. I know I'm way late to the party here, but it's called polymerization. And basically, you can high heat a fat, and it will coat layers on your cast iron and actually prevents the iron from getting into the food. And I didn't learn that until just a few days ago. And that really blew my mind because that changes the whole game of being able to use these cast iron pots and pans. So I'm really excited to delve into that. And like I said, I'm constantly questioning my own beliefs. Favorite tool for brain retraining that's affordable and practical. That would be subliminal messages from Real Subliminal that I have on my Matt Blackburn website. I started using those tracks way back when I was living with my parents, and I would play those subliminal messages through the ultrasonic transducers of the Neurophone NF3 device, and it changed my life. It absolutely rewired my brain. And talk about affordable and practical. I mean, the Neurophone is not super affordable for most people, but the subliminal tracks are, and you could play those through a speaker while you sleep, the silent track, or you can wear headphones, or you can take naps with it, or play it in your kitchen as you cook, and you could do the rain sound 3-track ones. Really powerful. I'm a big believer in subliminal messages because it gave me a huge effect. Teeth hurting after K supplement. Any insight? That sounds like a retinol deficiency. So I would make sure that retinol is coming in. Beef liver may not be enough. You might want to do beef liver plus cod liver oil and see if that helps out. Retinol plays a huge role in dental health. Do you believe there will be severe food shortages soon? My dad says they're about to run out of diesel. I've been saying that it's important to prepare, but not to think that the system's going to collapse any day now, because I think we still have time, and I think there will be really clear signs that things are going south very quickly. I think it's smart for pretty much everyone to work towards the homesteading thing and having your own chickens, bees, goats, cattle, get into hunting, foraging, gardening. We need more people that are into that aren't just standing in line at the supermarket, just reliant on the system. We definitely need more producers and less consumers. And if more people just went that direction, I think that we don't have to worry too much about the future. Well, besides maintaining the Second Amendment and making sure that we have the capability to protect our food with firearms, that's also very important. Someone says, with all of the evil environmental toxins and stressors, how do you best alleviate orthorexia? So I've been in and out of this for several years. When I first learned about NPK fertilizer, I was fanatical and really extreme with my approach to it. Now I think just following the 80-20 rule is really important. And what I do is I'm pretty on it when I'm home. In fact, I'm always on it when I'm home. But when I go out, not anything goes. I don't eat fast food, maybe Chipotle a few times a year, but I'm more relaxed with the food that I put into my body because I trust that it'll just go right through me and that I supplement the right things to help me neutralize and process the poisons. I think that's the best approach when you're home. Just have it really dialed in with everything. And when you go out, just have fun with your friends or family or loved one and don't stress. Thoughts on colloidal silver? Is it okay to take? So my neighbor actually gave me some Sovereign silver. That's a really popular colloidal silver brand when I had my eye injury. And he said his friend sweared by it, so he told me to put some drops in my eye and maybe it would help. And it did. I felt immediate relief. And I think As a first aid, topical, and as eye drops, colloidal silver is incredible. I think everyone should know how to make it at home, although you do need water distiller, which uses a ton of electricity, which is not necessarily off-grid friendly. But if you have access to distilled water and pure silver rods, and you can run electric current through them and make your own homemade colloidal silver, I think it's the best homemade first aid you can have. As far as taking it orally, internally, I did that for years in the RV that I was renting out in Chula Vista, San Diego. I would make it in a mason jar, wrap it in aluminum foil, put it in the closet in the dark. I would turn off the light before I went to bed, open the cabinet, and take a swig right from my bed. And I felt like it was more electrically charged, more active when the light didn't hit it. I had heard that from a influencer in the space in Hawaii, Robert Kazari. He said that silver is very reactive to light, and the silver film that we used to get pictures with Santa Claus, where the light hits it and it explodes and you could see the picture. He said the colloidal silver works the same way. So I experimented with that idea, and I did feel a difference with taking it exposed to light or in pitch black darkness. And I could say taking it in darkness, never having it exposed to light, which you can only do if it's homemade, made a big difference. So that's something to experiment with. I think there's a lot of factors, as always, with supplements. And another consideration is silver depletes other nutrients. I think it depletes copper, it definitely depletes selenium, and probably a bunch more. So just keeping in mind what it depletes if you're going to be taking a lot of it or taking it consistently. What kind of toothpaste is best? I have horrible teeth and gums, super sensitive teeth. I would look into North American Herb and Spice toothpaste. I would also look into a water pick. I use that every night. It's way superior to flossing. And that is a really good regenerative practice to use on your gums. I'd also look at Crucial 4 pearl powder. I coat my mouth in that multiple times a day. And that is really good for teeth health and dental health in general, even the gums. What do you recommend storing for bartering? So gold and silver are great. I'm really anti-Bitcoin. I think it's worthless. So gold, silver, ammunition / brass is really good for bartering. And beyond that, food. So eggs, milk, honey, fruit, vegetables, all of those things are great to barter as well. Protocol for moles that are growing in size and changing color. I've heard a lot of people get success from the cod liver oil and just increasing their vitamin A intake. I think some people said their moles have just faded or fallen off. Another thing you might want to look into is the Power Medic lasers out of Denmark. I have no affiliation with those people, but it's a great product. It's an 808 nanometer single wavelength laser. And they have a 500 watt and a 1500 watt. I own both of them, and they're like a Swiss Army knife. You could use them for so many things. Cold sores. I used them when I had my eye injury, and it really helped just using it around my eye. But you could also hit the moles directly with that, and that would probably be very effective. Why do so many women get diagnosed with iron deficiency? So that's also called anemia. But what they don't tell you is there's also copper deficiency anemia, which you probably never heard of. And you probably never heard of Morley Robbins, who has been championing the iron overload topic for several years now. So I would recommend listening to him and questioning the ferritin test that they give to show that you're supposedly iron deficient. So it's a really complicated topic. I highly recommend delving into Morley Robbins' work to get to the bottom of the iron deficiency, quote unquote, issue. ozone generator versus Brown's gas, aquacure versus molecular hydrogen. I imagine they mean inhaler. I would definitely go with the ozone generator out of those three devices. It's just so versatile. And if I had to choose between ozone or hydrogen, it would be ozone, hands down, just because of its incredible first aid uses. What would you do if you had cavitations? I would definitely take vitamin K2. I would definitely find a good biological holistic dentist ASAP, but really focus on the vitamin K2 because that has helped to reverse cavities in myself and other people that I've talked to. Is fruit good for the teeth? Should I avoid when I'm trying to restore my dental health? So as with coffee, wine, tobacco, orange juice, anything that is a little harsh on the teeth and the gums, I just recommend swishing with filtered water before and after and during, depending on the activity. And then throughout the day, like I said, coating the mouth in pearl powder. Best time to take vitamin K2 and what's the general recommended dose? The best time to take it is with a fatty meal. So generally I take it with breakfast, but sometimes with lunch or dinner. And the recommended dose, I would just go off the bottle. I shoot for at least 400 micrograms of MK7 every day. And I think 2,000 of MK4 a day is good to shoot for as well. Best tips or alterations for home, for living in a city. I think dirty electricity filters are the number one thing. Those are the Stetzer filters, because the more electronics that are plugged into the grid that you're connected to, the higher your dirty electricity exposure. So plugging 2 or 3 in every room, it can get kind of expensive, but just get a few more every month and you'll notice a difference in your sleep, mood, energy, all of that stuff just by lowering dirty electricity. You could also experiment with one of the Mitolife grounding sheets. Throw the rod out your window, pound it into the earth, and sleep grounded that way, not into the wall socket, but ideally directly into the earth, especially if you're in the city, and see if you feel better, if you feel more refreshed when you wake up. Will you be using LEDs for growing food? No, because I'm fully off grid. So that would take too much power, even though LEDs have a low wattage draw. Unless I figure out free energy or gain access to a free energy device, I'm reliant on what sunlight we get. What do you feed your cats? So I currently go back and forth between the Wellness brand and I and Love and You. They're wet food, they're chicken flavor. And my cats seem to like both of them, and I'm still figuring out which one they like more. And with the dry food, it's still the I and Love and You, either the turkey or the chicken flavor. Thoughts on ionic foot baths? I've never tried them. I'm open to it, but I've just never had access to one. All right, I'm going to stop the Q&A for now. If you're intrigued by this, I do one of these the last day of every month for the Mitolife Academy. I have to start making dinner here. It's tricky when the sun goes down around 9:30, 10 p.m. The days are getting longer and longer. And sometimes I'll forget to make dinner. And by the time I know it, it's 9:30 or 10 o'clock because there's still some light outside. So my website is matt-blackburn.com. I have my CLF protocol up there, recipes, all of my recommended products that I mentioned in this show. And my brand is called Mitolife. You can find that at mitolife.co. And I have some really exciting products in the works. I'm constantly thinking of new products. I might be branching out into some shower products soon. It's pretty exciting. And as far as the Panacea, a lot of people ask me when the Shilajit's coming back in stock. I would check a few times a week. Keep an eye on the Instagram page because it's announced there. And we are still keeping up with the high demand of that product. It's definitely the most popular Mitolife product. So appreciate your guys' support. There's a new podcast episode released every Friday. Check out the YouTube channel. That's where you can find the Mitolife Academy, where I put out 4 videos a month for advanced members, and then that private Q&A the last day of the month. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you learned something in the show. See you guys next week. Stay supercharged.